Another day, another comment from Dabo that the media absolutely hates.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host, John Bivens. You can follow us over on X right here at I am John Bivens. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are part of the amazing Locked On Network, where it is your team every day. Here on the Locked On Clemson podcast, you know what you're getting? You're getting three things. You're getting all sports, all passion, all of the time. We're bringing you everything you need to know about Clemson sports and Clemson athletics. Today is Friday, May 17th. Today we are diving into some more comments made by Dabo on the transfer portal. We're going to talk about the guys we should have got and another segment of our Friday Flashback Friday. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So yesterday we dove in and Dabo made some comments about the transfer portal. He made some comments about things we should be worried about, talking about how just the players we couldn't get, the players we didn't want to get, how we recruited from high school and got transfers from high school instead of transfers from college. We talked about that, and if you missed that episode, go back, catch that episode now. It's over on YouTube and all streaming platforms. You don't want to miss out when it was a good one. But yesterday, Dabo made an appearance on a SiriusXM radio show, and he had some more comments. He decided he wasn't done talking about the transfer portal. And I get it. People are asking him. I'm sure he gets questions about it every single day. And so he got more questions, and they asked him just more about why he doesn't get transfer players, why he isn't getting the players from the transfer portal, all that kind of stuff. And he made some comments. And the comments he made, the media is taking and absolutely destroying. They hate his comments. They can't stand it. But honestly, what he's saying, there's a lot of truth to what he says. And honestly, though, they're taking what he said and they're kind of twisting it. They're kind of taking his words out of context. And so what happened is they asked him, why didn't you get transfer portals? Why didn't you get players in the portal? Going through that question that he gets asked so often. And this time he gave a different answer. What he did is he outlined three different types of players in the transfer portal. He said at the end of the day, it's very simple why they didn't get players. And the reason is there's three different kinds of players in the transfer portal. So we're going to dive those down. Break into those three. Number one, what he said is very different than what's being construed by the media as what he said. What he said is being misquoted from different people saying that he said something they didn't. What people said that he is saying is he says the first type of player that's in the transfer portal is none of them are good enough to play at Clemson. If that's what he said, big issue, right? If that's what he said, obviously incorrect, obviously not the truth, obviously something that needs to be corrected. But that's not what he said. Here's what he said. He said the first type of player in the transfer portal, most of them aren't good enough to play at Clemson. Some of you are like, what was the difference? The first one, people are saying he said all of them. What he actually said is a lot of them, and the majority of them, are not able to play in Clemson. And I get that. I get why he's saying that. Clemson hardly ever has a starter leave. Most of the people that transfer are backups. They're bench players, right? They don't ever hardly have a starter to play. If someone's transferring, most likely they're transferring to get more playing time. They're going to play somewhere else that can start. And if our starters are full and they're transferring off a smaller college and they're not starting at a smaller college, what's going to make them go to Clemson, one of the top 10 programs in the nation, and think they could start there? That's an obvious, and that is a true statement. Most of the players in the transfer portal are not good enough to play at Clemson. They're not good enough to come start. And so why would they want to go and get no playing time when they're leaving somewhere they're already not getting enough? So I 100% understand that quote. I get it. I agree 100% with that first type, that the majority of players in the transfer portal simply aren't good enough to play at Clemson. Then he goes on and he talks about the other two type of players. He says the second one is they're only going into the portal as a formality. And so someone like, what do you mean? Well, what he's saying is that a lot of players, and especially the better ones, the ones towards the top of the list, they're transferring, and when they enter the portal, they already have their heart set. They're already going to their dream school. They're already going to one of the top schools that they wanted to in the first place but didn't get an opportunity. They're going to a school that they already know. So when they go to the transfer portal, there's not enough time for Dabo to be like, hey, you want to come to Clemson? They're like, no, I've already got my mindset. You can see that with a lot of the transfers, they'd be in the portal for like 2 days. You go on the transfer portal, from the time they announced they're going into the portal to the time they signed with the net school was like 2 days or even hours on a couple instances. Those instances, it's very obvious. They knew exactly where they were going. They knew exactly where their school they wanted to go to was. They weren't going to take any other offers. They weren't going to hear anybody else. They had their heart set. They made their minds up. Again, I 100% understand with that. There's the proof's in the pudding, right? The proof is there if a player says, you know what, I'm going to transfer, put my name in the transfer portal, and then the next day they're like, I signed with Ohio State. Obviously, they knew where they were going. They knew exactly where they wanted to go. Maybe some communication was happening before. That's not legal, but maybe it is. There's obviously times where that happens, and the proof is there that that's true. Then he goes on to the third, and he said the third is this is kind of the selfish player. Dabo kind of calls out some transfers here. He says that the third type of player is going in just to see what they can get. Dabo said the quote where they're never going to get that guy. That could be taken a couple different ways, right? Is he saying that when it comes to competing with top programs over what they can pay students, what they can provide students, that doesn't measure up with top programs? If that's the case, we're going to have a hard time recruiting high school graduates, prospect recruits, if we can't compete with other schools in that aspect. So if that's how he meant, little concern there. If it's not how I meant, instead, if he's saying that these players are going in to try to get what they can get and they can't compete, they're never going to be able to get that guy. If he's saying that he's not going to take away from what their current players have to give to a new addition, that's what I think he meant. That's what my guess is, and I get that. He's loyal. We talked about it yesterday. Our everydayers, if you are everyday listen, you heard us say this. Dabo's a loyal guy. He's a guy that sticks with his players. He sticks with the guys that were loyal to him. And so he's not going to make someone that chose Clemson, that is part of Clemson University already, he's not going to have them suffer, take something from them like a scholarship or NIL money or resources. He's not going to take that and give it to somebody else who's jumping ship, right? He's going to be loyal. He's going to stick true. So with those three types of players, and I agree, those three types of players are there. He made some comments about how there's not really room for transfers too. He talked about something that is amazing that you can't say about any other program. So at the beginning of spring, they had 127 players. In that spring game, they had 127 players. After the transfer portal, once it happened, they had 125, which means only 2 players left. No other program can say they kept that. Like, there's a couple, but not many can say that, especially at the top level. So in reality, when the transfer portal opened that spring, he only had room for 2 players to get. And when the majority of players fall in one of those first 3 categories, and he says all players fall in those categories, it makes sense why he didn't bring in. So his argument defended what he said. Overall, he's getting a lot of hate. He's getting so much hate from this, and it's because they're misconstruing what they're saying. He did not say no one in the portal was good enough to play at Clemson. He did not say that. He said the majority wasn't, and the people that were in there were either selfish, only getting what they were going, or they already had their minds made. And I'd agree that the majority of transfers probably fell in one of those 3 categories. Overall, I don't dislike what he said. I agree with almost all of it. I'd probably rate it an 8 out of 10 because what he did forget is he forgot the 4th type of player. I think he mentioned 3. I think there was a 4th type of player. So we're going to talk about that 4th player, identify that 4th category of transfer players in just a moment. NBA playoffs are in full swing. I'm a huge Denver Nuggets fan. They're going to Game 7 against the Timberwolves. They're playing really well right now, and I would love to be able to go see a game in Denver. It'd be amazing to go see that Game 7 game in the Mile High City. If I do get able to go, it's going to be through Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which make getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guaranteed, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. We all know Jokic. We all know Murray. We all know Aaron. They're all amazing players, right? They're talented. It'd be so much fun to watch. Well, Gametime makes that a possibility. Some of my favorite aspects of Gametime is I love the fact that when you get close, if you're like last minute decision, I'm going to get the game tonight, 60% off when you're buying last minute tickets. I also love the fact before you buy a ticket, you can click what seat you want and it shows a panoramic view where you can be like, oh, that's what I would see. I'd be able to see that guy sitting over there, right? No, it shows you all the what you're able to see from the seat before you ever buy the tickets. I love that. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the app, use code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEG for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download it now on the App Store or Google Play Store. So Dabo talked about 3 players, right? Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. He talked about the players that are not good enough for Clemson, the majority, the players that already know where they're going, and the players that they want to get as much as they can. I would agree and say probably 95 or more % of transfers fall into those 3 categories. But what he's missing is the 4th player. Look, let's be realistic. There's not a world where you can classify hundreds and hundreds of people with only 3 categories, right? Unless it's like they're alive, they're dead, or they're dying, right? I mean, that would work. But there's not any other word. There's not any other category in this world where you can give 3 characteristics and about their personality or their program or where they're at and describe them accurately with 3 characteristics and get 100% of the people, right? So Dabo tried to do that, and I disagree. I think he missed out on the 4th category. There's a 4th category of transfers, and what it is number 1, majority not good enough for Clemson. Yes, agree with that. 2, there's a lot of players, especially high up, that already know where they're going. Yes, agree with that. 3, players that just want to get as much as they can get out of it. Yes, agree with that. But there's a 4th that Dabo didn't mention, and that is the player that Clemson should have got. There are players, and there were players in this transfer portal that did not qualify with one of those 3 statements, one of those 3 qualifications that Clemson should have went out. There were so many talented players in this portal, and you can't tell me none of them weren't good enough to. Well, you can't tell me none of them were good enough to play at Clemson, didn't know where they were going, and weren't in there just for selfish reasons. There's no way that there wasn't 1 or 2 of them. And Dabo made that comment: 127 on the spring game, 2 transferred out, had 125 spots. Perfect. You have 2 more spots for scholarship players. Get a transfer. Get 2 transfers. You have perfect room. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the list of the top transfers from this section. I'm just going to go through a couple of them. You can find the list all over the place. On3 24/7 Sports has all different sports. We're going to look at the list on On3, switch it up a little bit today. But you can't tell me none of these players are good enough to play at Clemson and didn't qualify as any of those qualifications that Dabo mentioned. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through. Clemson had some holes. Right now, Clemson has some holes that they could use a little bit of help. The 2 biggest ones, offensive line and our secondary. There's offensive players out there on the line that could fit these categories that Clemson should have got. There's secondary players that Clemson should have went after, should have got. And so we're going to go through, talk about those. And granted, people might say, oh, you don't know. Maybe they did have their mind set up. You're right, we don't know. But you're not going to convince me that every single player we're going to mention is a part of that. So first one, the overall top transfer in the class, Caleb Downs. He's transferring from Alabama to Ohio State. A lot of people think he did that because of the head coach, because of Nick Saban not in there. You can't tell me he wasn't good enough to play at Clemson. Can't tell me that. He came in as a 5-star, and he's transferring out as an even higher rate 5-star. He would have been a great safety to come. He's a freshman. He's young. He's from Georgia. He'd have been a great player to come and play for Clemson. Granted, we don't know if he had his mind set up. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But he'd have been a great addition. Next up, we got Zalance Hurd, another freshman who left LSU to go to Clemson or to go to Tennessee. He'd have been a great offensive tackle for us to add. He came in as a 5-star. Now he's a 4-star transfer. But he would have been a great addition to have. You can't tell me he's not good enough. Again, we don't know if his mind was made up, but we're going to list a lot of players. Not all of them fall into that. We should have went after Zalance Hurd. Next up, Jabbar Muhammad left Washington to go to Oregon. Great transfer. Would have been a huge addition. We lost Nate Wiggins in the draft. Would have been a great replacement there for him. Caden Green, another offensive tackle, left Oklahoma going to Missouri. 4-star transfer. Keeping going. There's so many players, right? There's so many different players. I'm not even talking about the running backs or the quarterbacks or the wide receivers or edge players or linebackers, because we're just focusing on the holes that we had. You also have Corman I. McLean, left Colorado to go to Florida. You had A.J. Harris, left Georgia to go to Penn State. You have Des Rickens, left Alabama to go to Texas A&M. Jacoby Matthews, A&M to Washington. Keon Sabb, Michigan to Alabama. So I'm going to keep going. Kamari Ramsey, safety. You left UCLA to go to Southern California. There's so many players. I'm only through the top 30. I just listed out 7 or 8 names in the top 30 transfers, and there was hundreds of them. You're telling me out of all these players, the ones I've named, the ones I haven't named, out of all those players, not one of them didn't know where they were going, weren't in it for selfish reasons, and weren't good enough to play for Clemson? I don't agree. That's why I rank Dabo's comments as an 8 out of 10. Because overall, for the majority of what we're thinking, the most of what he said, I agree. I think it was a great interview. I don't think it's fair the hate it's getting. I don't think it's fair the disrespect that they're putting on Dabo's name and disrespect they're putting on Dabo's take. It's too much. But you can't tell me that none of them are good enough to play at Clemson. You can't tell me that none of them Clemson had a chance at getting. There, you will never convince me of that. You were never, ever, ever convince me of that. And let's not forget, one of the top 50 players that transferred, Andrew Makuba. He left Clemson, right? He went to Texas. You can't get one safety to replace his spot. So with that in mind, with all of that context in mind, I really feel like Clemson's missing out. I feel like Dabo missed the mark on this. He had the window. He had the 2 open spots like he even mentioned. I agree with the majority. I know we've said that a couple times, but I agree with his take. I'm not saying that I disagree with him. I'm saying that I disagree with part of it. I do agree that the majority of players in this transfer portal weren't good enough to play at Clemson. There's no way a player that's transferring from Oregon State or from FIU who couldn't start, who wasn't getting the starting time he needed, could come to Clemson and start there when he wasn't starting at a smaller program, right? Like, I agree with that 100%. I agree that there are players out there that already had their mind set up of where they're going. 100% agree with that. I believe that. I think that's true. I think that's fair. I agree that there are players out there that are in selfish reasons. There's for sure players out there that are in there to see how much money can I get, how much playing time can I get, how much recognition can I get, how much time can I be on TV. There's players out there that are just me. One, you don't want selfish players. 2, they don't fit Clemson. Clemson doesn't have a lot of those players, and those that do usually find themselves leaving. So I agree with those points, but you're never going to convince me that there wasn't one transfer out there that didn't qualify in those 3. You're never going to convince me that there wasn't one player that fit the Clemson vibe that couldn't have came in and helped this team, either offensive line or secondary or even another position. No way. There's 0 chance that's the case. So overall, with Dabo's comments, they're getting a lot of hate. You looked it up. Let's just do a fun fact. I'm on Google right now. I'm going to type in Dabo's comments on Sirius XM. Let's just see the first comments. You ready? First post, ridiculous take. That's one in the title that we get. The next one by Athlon Sports makes absurd comments. What's absurd about saying that majority of them aren't good enough to play at Clemson? I would agree with that. Sportskedia, conservative. He's sick of his takes. Like, there's so many points on there that is just like they're tearing him up. I literally Googled it. You watched me type that in, and I read some of the top posts, most common posts that were there. People are tearing him apart. They're not liking what he has to say, and honestly, it's not fair. It's not fair the hate he's getting. So I think we could have got some of them. I think we did 2 spots. I agree with this take, but I also agree that there's probably a couple transfers out there that we could have got that could have helped. But I guess we won't know if Dabo's right or if the media's right until the season. If Clemson comes out and Dabo leads them to a 10-2, 11-1 college football playoff run, leads them on this great run, ACC champs, has a successful season, the media can't say anything because he did it his way and he succeeded. If he comes out and has another season like last year, even worse, yeah, things get hot, right? Things get hard there. Then we'll know, yeah, Dabo was messed up. I think the opening game against Georgia won't be a true telling because obviously Georgia is a program on its own right now. They have a great program right now, and it is a little bit ahead of Clemson with recent success. But as the season progresses, we get into ACC, which is a tougher division this year with NC State, Louisville, Virginia Tech having increased teams. overall, we're going to tell through the ACC play if Dabo's good his way, if Dabo can stick with his way, or if the media is right and maybe Dabo needs to be more modern in his approach. So, and when we come back, we're going to talk about our Friday segment of our Flashback Friday, and it's a fun one. We're excited to talk about it. We will see you in just a minute.
Guess what, guys? It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Guess what? The NBA playoffs are here. Anthony Edwards is absolutely killing it. And plus, if you're into the NHL, we got some slap shots you can bet on. The Carolina Hurricanes are in the second round right now. So I need you to go to that bad boy and check it out. Because here's what new customers can get. $150. Yes, you heard that correctly. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Let me repeat that. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And I'm telling you, you can bet on anything from the spreads, the money lines, player props, and much, much more. I'm telling you, $150, oh my God, you can win some money. All you got to do is pay attention and go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. The website is FanDuel.com/locked-on, LOCKEDON, and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.
Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. So we've talked about it, right? We've had 2 days where we're pretty much focusing in on Dabo and transfer comments and media and all this stuff, and it's fun. It's interesting to talk about. We enjoy talking about it. Let's switch it up though. Let's go in a little bit more. Just a take that everyone's excited about, that everyone's talking about. Flashback Friday. What this segment is we flash back to something that has to do with Clemson football or Clemson baseball or Clemson basketball. We flash back to another time. And in this one, I'm going to go a little personal. You ready? So rewind it. It is 2013. It is a Saturday morning college football season, and Clemson plays at noon. So you wake up early, have a good breakfast, and you got nothing in the day. 2013, you chill. So what do? You launch your PS3. You load in college football 2014, and you spend the day grinding. You grind it with your dynasty, or where you're trying to progress. And you started off as a coach of a small school, and you've grown it to be a huge school, and now you're transferring over. You're a head coach at Clemson football, growing your team. Or you play a road to the glory, and you started off as that quarterback who played in high school and grounded it out, dominated, got a scholarship. You worked your way up through the strings, playing quarterback at Clemson. Started as a backup and made your way as a starter, led them to a championship. Good times, right? It's just simpler times being able to enjoy that. Well, now college football is returning. We are pumped about it. And so we're going to give you our take on the new college football game 2025. Most of our episodes come out 5 a.m. in the morning. That's when we try to release every episode. Today, it was a later episode. If you're watching this, I'm sorry I didn't have this for you Friday morning while you're working out or driving to the work on the way. I'm sorry we didn't have it for you then. We're a little later. And the reason we are late is at 10:55 Eastern Time where we live, college football, EA put out their official trailer, their release trailer for a college game, and we wanted to watch that and then put our reaction to that on the show. And so while we were watching it, we noticed some things. I tried to take note. I've watched it a couple times already, and so I was watching it, and the first thing I noticed is it started off and there was a 2-minute countdown. In that 2-minute countdown, you saw the old school time. They had the college football band playing this fight song going on. It was crazy. Every 15 seconds, they would change the theme of the clock, and there would be one team's logo. That was the format of the clock and had the logo on the bottom. I got worried. You know the teams that were included in those 2 minutes every 15 seconds? Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama. And I'm like, those three make sense. But Clemson wasn't one of them. And they put in FSU. They put in LSU. They put in smaller teams, Florida. They put in teams that didn't make sense that they were there. Like, still big teams, but when it comes to football prowess, Clemson should have been in there. So at first, 2-minute countdown was on. I was like, great, Clemson's not going to be in this. Clemson's not going to be promoted at all in this. But then the trailer started, and things changed, right? First thing you see, Clemson's rubbing Howard Rock. You get to see it in the shot. Next thing you see is Clemson's in the locker room. You get to see him standing right before they run down the hill. Man, this game looks great. This game looks absolutely great. In the next couple of minutes, look, I'm going to get nerdy. Fair. I'm going to get nerdy for you. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry. But I'm going to get nerdy about some video games just because it's a college football game. It's exciting. Old college football game, what we're excited about, what we're really hoping is college football and Madden used to be released together, and they were made by the same company, but they had very different feels. Madden's got that put together, you're playing it, and it's like they want to try to make you not feel like you're playing a video game. College football used to have this feel where it's like you're having a great time playing a football game, but it's college football. It's you're playing as your team. Like they had the mascot frenzy where you played a game and every player was in the mascot, right? That was fun. The gameplay was different than Madden. So when college football announced that they're coming out with this game, my biggest question, my biggest fear is that it's going to come out, it's going to be another Madden. If that's the case, right? Like we don't want that. We don't want that at all. But this trailer, it gives me some encouragement. This trailer's coming out, and it's giving me encouragement that it's very different. They're showing the atmospheres. They're bringing in the vibe of college football. When I watched this trailer, I felt the vibe. I felt the energy that happens on a Sunday kickoff or a Saturday kickoff. I felt the vibe that happens from the players in their portals, the traditions in college football. One of the things that puts college football above NFL to me is the traditions, the history. Every team has their own traditions, from Inner Sandman at Virginia Tech to Clemson, the bus ride, the three left turns, right? You got the running down the hill, the Howard Trot, Florida rubbing the head, Boston College rubbing the eagle. You've got these amazing traditions. Wake Forest with the motorcycle, right? Oregon with the duck. You've got these amazing traditions. And college football seems like they're going to be entering that. So that's exciting. I love to see when we were watching the thing, Clemson appeared in the trailer 4 different times. There was only a couple schools that appeared more than that. A lot of schools didn't appear any. I love University of South Carolina, UOSC, didn't appear. Tar Heels didn't appear. Love to see that. Makes me happy. Makes me joyful. That makes me more happy than Clemson being in it 4 times. I don't know why. I love to see it. But I'm excited about that. I'm sure a lot of you are excited about the new college football game coming out. Pre-orders available. We're not sponsored by them. I'm just talking about it because I enjoy it, and I'm sure some of y'all do. So we're ready for it. Some of the things I hope are in it. Some of the things I hope are in the game are, one, I really hope that there is like cross-platform online dynasties. I got a couple friends that play Xbox. I'm a PlayStation guy. That'd be sweet if we could do a dynasty, right? Like Michael a couple of days ago was on us from Duke Blue Central. If we could do a dynasty where he's Duke and I'm Clemson, I'm unfair advantage on the go, right, with Clemson versus Duke football. I say that, but Duke beat us last year, but we're not going to talk about that. But being able to do dynasty with them would be crazy. Road to the glory. I wonder how they're going to do transfers in the game. I wonder how they're going to work. Can you go in and decide what school you're going into and then enter the portal and transfer a different year? Like, how are they going to include that? How is that going to be a part of it? How is NIL going to be a part of it? Are you going to be able to like argue with sponsors? Do I want to sign with Pepsi or Coke? Do I want to sign with FanDuel or another program, right? Like, obviously I'd go with the stuff that's happening, right? I'd go with our sponsors here on the show, but you want to go through and you want to talk, you get to argue with the NIL. So overall, I'm really excited about the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know how excited you are in the comments and all that kind of stuff. But our Flashback Friday today is flashing back to a simpler time. Being able to enjoy college football, playing it before watching Clemson win. Now we're going to get to do that again. This is football season. What I'll be doing, the games that I'm not at, and believe me, we're going to be at a lot of them, bringing you credentialed media stuff from Clemson football. But the games I'm not, I'm going to be chilling, playing some college football, watching some college football, talking about college football, and then playing college football again. I can't wait. Living the dream, loving life. And so with all that being said, though, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, next week, we're going to dive into more Clemson football. I'm sure Dabo's going to have more comments that the media is going to destroy by then. We'll break into all of those. We're also going to talk about Clemson baseball. We're in the middle of our last season or series of the season before we dive into ACC tournament and NCAA postseason college baseball. So we're going to talk about all that and so much more. Hey, let us know your topics on today. We love seeing the comments over on YouTube. We'd love for you to be a part of those conversations. We try to reply to all those. Let us know, what's your take on Dabo's take on the transfer? How do you feel about these comments? Let us know what your thoughts on college football. You going to play it? You going to get it? You think it's just going to be another Madden? What's your thoughts on all that? We'd love to hear all those. Whether you contact us over on Twitter, you can find all that right here at I Am John Bivens. Contact us over there. Comment on YouTube. Just let us know your thoughts. You can even email us at thetigerwire@gmail.com. I'd love to hear feedback on everything we talked about. But if you haven't, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following us over on all the audio platforms, wherever you're listening. If you enjoy the show, give us a 5-star rating. That'd help us a lot. Even leave a written comment or written review over on one of those audio platforms would help us. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We're on the journey to 1,000 subscribers, so help us get there. We're almost there. We'd appreciate all that help. Well, when you subscribe, when you follow, it lets you be your first listen every single day right here on Locked On Clemson Podcast. We can't wait to see you next week on the next episode. Until then, keep that Tiger Pride alive and roaring, and as always, go Tigers.